Texas and Baylor facing off once again. Texas trying to get back on track after a couple straight losses. We'll talk about that. The World Series, the Rays and the Dodgers getting underway. First two games already completed. We'll talk about that. And a little Hingle McCringleberry action. Was that 2 or 3 pumps from the great Aaron Rodgers? You're watching the 1-0 Sports Show.
Texas finally 1-0, finally riding for the brand. Although Tom Herman did say they were 1-0 10 times last season.
Feinbaum, I'll give him like half a point.
Dude, you like okay. Feinbaum way too much.
Yeah, all right. I'm like
you're
I'm the Feinbaum of this show.
By the way, that looks Ohio State. Is that an omen? Give me that Longhorn hat.
Oh man!
Hook him, baby.
All right, he's pulling the Corso.
Thank you for joining us on your Friday morning once again. I am your host, Robert Trevino, and today I am joined on the left and the right by two fantastic panelists, Clark Dalton and Justin Morris. How are you guys? Justin, let's start with you.
Yeah, doing pretty well. Got my I voted sticker on, just recently voted, so, can't complain. Doing my civic duty.
Be sure to get out and vote. If you're in Texas to the 30th, polls are open. Be sure to do that. Thanks for the plug for that, Justin. We needed to do that. Clark, how are you doing?
The show hot.
I'm doing well. Excited to be on 1-0 again. It's been a while since I've been on, but very excited to talk about the World Series and some Texas football today.
Well, absolutely. When it comes to baseball, we got two fantastic guys here to talk about it. And certainly we have a lot of baseball to talk about. So let's start with you, Clark. As we always start it with, who's hot or who's not? Let's get into that segment. As I said, Clark, you'll start us off. Who's hot?
Well, let me tell you who's hot right now. It is Zach Wilson at BYU. He's the junior quarterback for BYU. And throughout the years, the Cougars have produced some great quarterbacks. Jim McMahon, who led the 85 Bears to the Super Bowl, Steve Young, who's a Hall of Famer, and Ty Detmer, who won the Heisman in 1990. And Zach Wilson is balling right now. He's completing 78% of his passes. He's thrown 12 touchdowns through the season, and he has the Cougars at a 5-0 record. He's playing very, very well. He's showing a little bit of magic and getting himself into the Heisman conversation with players like Sam Ellinger, Trevor Lawrence. Huge for him and the BYU program to bring them back to the national stage.
Yeah, BYU back in the national stage, and especially a year where it seems anything can happen. Can't rule out the Cougars just yet. Justin, who's hot for you?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Who's hot, Clark? But I'm gonna have to spin things around a little bit more in my favor. My who's hot is anybody who hates the Astros. The Astros, as many of you know, have been part of the recent MLB scandal that has ridden the entire MLB, tainted the name of the Houston Astros, tainted Minute Maid Park in its entirety. And everyone's just been rooting against them in this country. And you know what? They finally did it. They finally lost to the Tampa Bay Rays, but ended up going on to the World Series. So, a lot of people were calling this their tour. A lot of people were hyped up. Didn't quite get all the hatred out as much as as us fans wanted. But, the end result was achieved, and that leaves me happy. And I know it leaves many people that are anti-Astros happy. So.
Well, me included, I think anytime you cheat your way to a World Series title, you deserve a little bit of hatred from other teams for, I think, at least a period of 5 years. So I think we still got a couple more to go. All right, Clark, in the spirit of negativity, who's not?
Well, I think AFC East fans are licking their chops on this one because after years of domination, it's the New England Patriots. The Patriots didn't allow a touchdown against the Denver Broncos and still lost the game. And it was against Drew Lock, who's one of the first quarterbacks in recent memory to have a win against Bill Belichick in Foxborough. And it's just been a string of bad luck for the Patriots recently. Cam Newton had COVID. That affected them. They lost 10-26 against the Chiefs. This was after a pretty strong start, and now they're 2-3, sitting behind the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. And we're seeing some problems with them offensively. Cam Newton's having to do a lot. Julian Edelman's just not on the same rhythm as before. N'Keal Harry, they wanted him to be a tier 1 wide receiver. That's not happening yet. And New England might have to make a move. They want to get back in the AFC East chase, but that's going to be hard with the Buffalo Bills sitting atop that division and the Miami Dolphins even making some noise. So I think AFC East fans have a lot to be happy about.
Yeah, and when it comes to the Patriots, I don't think anybody would have expected a who's not the way we've seen them operate for the last decade and more than the last decade. But you are right, Clark, on that. The Patriots not hot. AFC East has to be excited. Justin, who's not?
My who's not is Americans' digestive systems, and I'll tell you why. In Game 1 of the World Series, Mookie Betts stole a base and Taco Bell runs a deal where if someone steals a base, everyone gets a free Doritos Locos Tacos on a specific day. If I'm correct, I believe it's the 28th, which is next Wednesday. So we might be celebrating College Cross afterwards by hitting up the Taco Bell Cantina on the drag. But I personally am not too big of a fan of Taco Bell. Kind of ruptures my stomach anytime I eat it. So my who's not is the many digestive systems of American citizens, because they're about to be rocked by free tacos at Taco Bell.
That's a great who's not. And a fantastic who's not segment. And that'll be our segue into another great segment that we have on the A block every single week. This week will be no different. Embrace debate. So, fellas, let's embrace debate. And I'm going to start it off with the first question. We'll let Justin go first. What are the biggest takeaways after the first two games of the World Series? Because we've seen it now. First couple of games already played in Texas, interestingly enough, to set the scene a little bit here. But I want to get right to y'all guys. What are your takeaways? Yeah,
my biggest takeaways are that that guy right there, Mr. Clayton Kershaw, is able to get things done. You know, a lot of people were worried about him, myself included. I'm a huge Clayton Kershaw fan personally, and I was worried whenever I saw that he was getting the start on the bump in Game 1, but he was able to get it done, got out of kind of a rough first inning for the Dodgers, but was able to pull it away, had 8 strikeouts on the night and 6 innings pitched, and just ended up playing pretty incredible. They weren't quite able to get it done, and I know Tony Gonsolin had the start for the Dodgers last night. It was a little bumpy. I believe I saw the stat. It was one of the quickest pulls in World Series history by a starter. But, the Dodgers know what they got to do, and they look hungry. They look like they're ready to take it. And as a Dodgers fan personally, I think this might be the easiest year that the Dodgers have to actually come away with that World Series championship against this Tampa Bay Rays team. But they're still really good, and eager to see how far this series goes.
Yeah, we've seen a lot already. Clark, what are your takeaways after the first couple games?
My biggest takeaway after Game 2 is the Rays have a lot more fight than I expected. I knew this was a good team, but this was really sort of a team of destiny. When we were thinking about the AL World Series representative, the Yankees came to mind, the Oakland Athletics came to mind. We knew the Rays were going to be good, but I didn't think they were going to take that next step. And in Game 1, Dodgers are a great team, so they're going to come to play, and they were dominated 8-3. And after that loss, you'd expect, oh no, maybe the Rays are going to fall over. But for them to come out in Game 2 with a lot of fight and get the victory shows that this is a potential to be the series, and the Rays aren't going to go down quietly.
Yeah, this is shaping up to be a competitive series, and especially with the wide array of different performances we've already seen, that'll be a fantastic one to keep our eye on, and we for sure will. Now let's get to we finally got to talk about it, fellas. I'm sorry, the NFC East. All right, and just to set the scene a little bit for some viewers here, the Washington football team, they are 1-5. That makes them one game away, obviously, from having the first overall pick next year. They're also one game away from leading their division. So I think that's all we got to say as to the state of the NFC East. So we'll start with you, Clark, this time. Why is the NFC East so bad, and what has to change to make it better?
Well, we have to look at the infrastructure of the organization. When you look at all 4 of the teams in the NFC East, we see major problems in the leadership and the front office personnel for each team individually. The Washington football team is a great example. They've been dysfunctional for over 20 years. Dan Snyder is an owner who always wants his way. Sometimes he doesn't make the best decisions. Jerry Jones has had his success, but so far this Mike McCarthy experiment is not working because the Cowboy players are not responding to a head coach. And this is someone who was out of the game for a year, and we weren't sure if he was really the guy to lead the Cowboys. And there were other options they could have picked from. And then the Giants, they have a little bit more stability in their ownership, but the general manager is Dave Gettleman. And you see him take Daniel Jones, who's a nice player, but probably isn't going to be a top 10 quarterback eventually, just whip on him. And then with the Eagles, you have sort of this, what's the right word? I'm trying to think, this content after winning the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots just a few years ago, and then not really trying to build and get younger and new draft picks. And we see, Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz struggling on the field because they don't have any weapons because they haven't drafted right. So I think it's really the organizations needing to look within and rebuilding their infrastructure. And quite frankly, with the history of these teams and the finances they have, it's unacceptable. The Cowboys are one of the most valuable franchises, not just in the NFL, in the entire sports world. So I think they need to really clean house with their leadership and start to consider that, and that'll get them going back in the direction they need to go.
Yeah, so kind of a top to bottom approach, Clark said, and I mean that's probably the worst case scenario for these teams when they envision making those big changes. Justin, what about you?
Man, I know we're trying to embrace debate, but good God, the owners of the NFC East teams are probably some of the most arrogant, just high-nosed, sticks up their you-know-whats kind of guys out there. It's really just depressing between Jerry Jones, Dan Snyder, I forget who the owner of the Giants is, and then just the Eagles too. The Eagles are just kind of off this year, to be completely honest. But the management between those two first teams specifically is just god-awful, and this is just kind of finally coming into fruition, seeing it happen. The NFC East always has a history of being one of the most competitive divisions in the NFL, and it is just not there here whatsoever. I mean, some of the stat lines that are coming out of this is just depressing. I think it's a total of 5, if I'm correct, 5 wins total between these four teams, and we're in like week 7 already. It's just sad, just a sad thing to see. And the second part of this question was what has to change to make it better? Time's the only thing that's going to make this better for these teams. They just need to analyze, what is necessary for their own franchises to get better, and execute on it. That's one of the hard thing that they've struggled with so far. Is that's what comes out of being just a stick in the mud owner. You don't want to do what's best for your team. You want to do what's best for the dollar, and they just got to get rid of that if they want to compete for a Super Bowl and make their claim for rightfully being in the playoffs, because right now the NFC East being in the playoffs is an absolute joke.
Yeah, time heals all wounds. I think it will have to heal this wound that is the NFC East. You could have even said Dak Prescott might have had a chance to at least salvage a little bit. Of course, He's now out, so kind of a perfect storm for that division. Let's stay in the NFL. We're moving on to a fantastic quarterback. Aaron Rodgers, historically, 1 Super Bowl title to his name. Recently, we've seen a little bit of some drama. Not going to say this is drama, but the Hingle-McCringleberry hip thrust, a nice reference to an old Key and Peele skit. Let's get your takes on this. What do you think about this, Justin?
I would have to let me check real quick what he's doing, what's going on real quick. So we got him.
The two pumps, that's not a penalty.
Oh,
the 3 pumps is when it becomes a penalty. So he has the Hingle-McCringleberry thing. He has his little spat here with Ndamukong Suh. He said that things are obviously less than cordial. He couldn't wait apparently to talk to him after the game. So let's start it off, Justin. What happened with Aaron Rodgers? What's happening with him?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I know that here. I'll tell you this. This is what I know. The 1 hour that I was in Green Bay last summer. This is what I got out of it. Those people like to drink beforehand. I think Aaron Rodgers may have just hit the bar a little too late Saturday night beforehand, and was partying a little bit too hard in North Wisconsin that night before, and was just a little off just a little off that night. We'll put it, or off that day. We'll leave it at that. Keep it safe.
So a little bit of the Sunday scaries for our boy, Mr. Rodgers.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Clark, how about you? What's happening with Rodgers?
I just think Aaron Rodgers is so frustrated with Green Bay this season because they took Jordan Love, a quarterback, in the first round when a lot of people thought they needed a skill position, possibly a wide receiver or a tight end to help him out. And I think this has kind of been the theme throughout the season is Aaron sort of on his revenge tour. And I think with the Hingle-McCringleberry thing, he was sort of trying to add the exclamation point to that. But unfortunately, Green Bay didn't play well against Tampa and they didn't get the victory. I just think Rodgers is so focused and so zeroed in this season. He's just trying to prove himself in every aspect of the game. And Ndamukong Suh, him and Rodgers had a little bit of history because they were rivals on the Lions and Packers for a long time. That's just that competitive drive coming out this week. And we know athletes always like to show that they're the best, and that's just simply what's going on with Rodgers right now.
All right, let's get into – this is probably the first week that we can really start talking about the MVP without kind of getting laughed out of the building without any real games to play. So now we've got the games played. We can call it. Clark, let's start with you. Who's your way too early? Who's at the top of your list for MVP?
Well, this is a great year for MVPs because we've seen so many spectacular performances. Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, but I'm going to go with that guy right there, Russell Wilson, who was just on the screen. This is probably Russ's best season of his career, and he's never received a single MVP vote in his career, and I think he's so motivated by that he's going to go out and show everybody. And another thing with Wilson this year is he has the weapons that surround him. Chris Carson's playing pretty well, and DK Metcalf is quickly becoming one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. I think with Wilson's experience and that arsenal of offense, he's going to be lifting MVP hardware at the end of the season.
Yeah, Justin, do you agree with Clark here about Russell Wilson, or who's at the top of your list?
You know what? This block's called Embrace Debate. Let's embrace debate. I would love to say Russell Wilson. Maybe Clark. If we would have gone first, I would have said Russell Wilson. Hint, hint. That was my answer originally. But let's go with it. Let's ride with it. Patrick Mahomes. I think that he's having a pretty decent season for himself. A lot of people were concerned after the Super Bowl. That even though he's not in his sophomore season, that slump that tends to happen after a player leads their team to the Super Bowl. But the Kansas City Chiefs are doing a great job in the AFC West currently. And I think that he's still in contention for this MVP award.
Yeah, we'll see if maybe his team might be too good for his own good as far as stealing votes, especially Russell Wilson has come out and has become a fantastic story. All right, let's keep it football. Let's switch from the NFL. Let's go into the college football landscape. So we all know the Big Ten and the Pac-12 starting their season very late because they had COVID protocols, didn't want to start the season on time, came back. Now they're going to play again. So now everyone's back, Power 5, fully intact. For both of you, in an ideal world, what does the college football postseason look like? Justin?
So you brought up the Big Ten and the Pac-12 coming in additionally late, and maybe we're kind of getting into a little bit later whenever we're making our CFP picks for the college football playoff, but I don't think that the Pac-10 is going to be competitive enough, nor do they have enough time to kind of build up their resume to where they can compete in the college football playoff this year. And my bold take on this, too, is that it's only going to be 3 conferences represented in the college football playoff. I don't think the Big 12 is going to be able to make it into the college football playoff this year. Oklahoma State's riding high right now, but they're not going to be able to get it done. And we'll talk more about what I think later whenever we get to CFP picks. But I think that the Big Ten kind of has enough time, and they got, the powerhouse names in Ohio State, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Minnesota, teams like that are, able to get things done. And, they have that resume, that repertoire already with the college football playoff to, make their way into it. But I don't think that the Pac-10 is just getting a little bit too late. They only have pretty much about a month and a half to play to gauge on that compared to other teams in the league.
Clark, what do you think?
I kind of agree with Justin here. I know it's embrace debate. Sorry about that, folks. But with the Big Ten, it just is the way it is. But anyways, with the Big Ten, they have the credentials. With Ohio State, a lot of players coming back, even Michigan in there, they're going to make some noise at least. Minnesota and Wisconsin are very good teams as well. But the Pac-12, it hasn't been since Washington went to the college football playoff that they've had a representative. Oregon's losing Justin Herbert. We're not really sure what USC is. Arizona State has some nice pieces, but they're still a very young team. And considering the pushback that they've had, I think it's really going to hurt them at the end of the day. And this is just really complicated with how they're going to have a college football playoff. Because do you push it back to maybe February or March or something like that? I don't know. And how does the bowl structure work as well? Because, again, it's a lot of travel and there are concerns with COVID. So that's something I'm worried about. But just to focus on the football on the field, I don't think the Pac-12's at the same strength as the other Power 5 conferences.
Yeah, we'll see that how that shakes out. I mean, really a year unlike any other in college football. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. A lot of on-the-field stuff will dictate really what options are available for everyone. All right, let's get into some UT volleyball to close out the segment. Texas, #1 in the country, undefeated, but they were almost not undefeated after they were pushed to 5 sets against Kansas State in Manhattan. So Texas has looked phenomenal this year, but does this 5-set game have you a little worried? Justin, what do you think?
Not really. After looking at this, I think that this was just kind of a blunder for this Texas team, a little slip up. They were able to have a team take them to 5 sets. But the reason why I know that is because Texas came back the next day and swept the Kansas State Wildcats and kind of carried on as if nothing really had happened the day before, even though it was really the closest scare that they've had so far. And possibly even this season, except, they do have Baylor coming up. But they're playing a top 15 team in Kansas State. And they've already beaten they were able to sweep twice a top 10 team in Kansas just a few weeks ago. So I think that this was just kind of a slip up on the Texas Longhorns, maybe not as much preparation. But judging by the Saturday's game, the performance the day afterwards, I know that it was just a little hiccup for them, and they were able to get back in the right mindset and get it done the next day against the Wildcats.
Clark, any words for you?
Nah, this team is fine because, again, Kansas State's a very good team. They're ranked 13th in the country. They're at home, so they have a little bit of an advantage there. But then Texas comes back and bounces back immediately with a straight sets victory. And also, let's look at the talent on this Texas team. I mean, it's a treasure trove of riches. You have Breon Butler, Skylar Fields, and Molly Phillips taking that next step. You're adding depth with Morgan O'Brien, and Jenna Gabriel keeps getting better and better, and Logan Eggleston's always going to be knocking down kills. This team definitely doesn't have anything to worry about. They're the best team in the Big 12, in my opinion, and they're winning the title this year.
All right, well, that does it for embracing debate. And don't worry, there's a lot of debate here to come because when we come back, we're talking Texas against Baylor this weekend. Lots to cover on that. Be sure you stick around. You're watching the 1-0 Sports Show. You saw that, voted the best, and we're back with the best, Clark Dalton, Justin Morris. Thank you guys for joining me. Let's talk Texas versus Baylor, this upcoming football game for UT. Trying to get back on track after a couple straight losses. Let's jump right into the questions. Number one, what does Texas need to look out for against Baylor? Because this is a team in Texas that we've seen kind of get surprised in the past couple of weeks, and Baylor, very talented. Justin, what do you think they need to look out for?
Yeah, I think that this Texas team needs to be on the lookout for Baylor making adjustments during this game. I'll be completely honest, kind of getting ahead to our picks and stuff like that. The outcome of this game is really difficult for me to pick because considering the sloppy performances that Texas had really in the last 3 games, I'm going to go as far as including the Tech game in this. Texas they rally late, and it's paid off sometimes. It hasn't paid off other times. So I think that, well, on top of that, too, Baylor's only played 2 games so far, and they don't have a lot of stuff to base off of. So Baylor's going to be making adjustments, not just because they're adjusting to the Texas offense or defensive schemes, but they're adjusting just, okay, what does this team have to do necessarily to compete in this football game, basically? Because they didn't have a spring season. They've only had a limited amount of practice compared to Texas, which has had as close to what a normal season would be so far in terms of practicing and stuff like that. But Baylor's been kicked back from stuff outside of the athletic department as well as inside of the athletic department. So that's what Texas needs to look out for, is just any adjustments that Baylor may make in the game, and not because they're adjusting to what Texas is doing, but they're adjusting just because they need to adjust as a team.
Yeah, we've seen Texas come out a little flat-footed, especially when it comes to the third quarter. Clark, what do you think they need to look out for with the Bears?
Well, one thing with the Bears is defensively on third down, they're one of the toughest teams in the Big 12. Opponents only convert 28% of their third downs against Baylor, so they can't get in those situations like you just talked about with the third quarter, where you're getting in a lot of 3rd and 5 situations, a lot of 3rd and 9 situations. You need to be constantly moving against Baylor. They also need to watch out for Charlie Brewer, just because we all know the matchup between him and Sam Ellinger, they're high school rivals. Brewer's dad goes to Texas, but Brewer ends up going to Baylor, so there's always that little bit of chip of the shoulder on him. And the last thing they need to really look out for is not letting the outside chatter and negativity seep in, because that could really hurt the team. We know this is a tipping point game because this could determine the ultimate fate of the season.
Absolutely. It's a lot of thirds, third down, third quarter. Now let's get to the second question of this block. What are the keys for Texas's success as far as being proactive, not reactive? What are the keys that Texas needs to lean on? Clark?
Well, one key I think they need to lean on is limit the penalties. They have 38 this season so far. That's just not acceptable. You just have to come out sharp and making sure that you're lining up correctly. You're not jumping too early. And when a play stops, don't keep moving. Don't get an unnecessary roughness, because that's bad. And I think offensively, one thing they need to do is they started off really well in the Texas Tech game because they used that no-huddle offense. When they're using that no-huddle offense, there's no stoppage in play. And it's just kind of that thing where you're not thinking through everything. You're just reacting to everything and letting the game come to you, not trying to force the game. So I think that'll help. And also making sure that you limit Baylor's rushing attack, because Justin Lovett, he's had some big games against the Horns in the past.
Those are important keys. Justin, what are yours?
Yeah, the biggest key to success for this team is taking advantage of the ball anytime that it's in Sam Ellinger's hands. Texas is just their defense is a little off, and they haven't been able to perform as much as they would like to be performing, or as much as us fans personally would like to see them performing. So anytime that Sam Ellinger has the ball in his hands, they need to be scoring a touchdown, or the bigger thing too is that they need to get downfield as much as possible. And the reason why I say that is because I hope he's not watching, but Ryan Bushevsky is a god-awful punter, and they just avoid letting the ball get into his hands as much as possible because he's been really inconsistent. And the special teams have just been inconsistent as well. So limiting that as much as possible and making sure that they can execute anytime they have the ball. And then one more final thing real quick is don't let your foot off the brakes. The third quarter, we talked about that just a minute ago. They slump in that third quarter. They kind of take a break. I saw it. We saw it in the Oklahoma game too, where they just kind of let Oklahoma have that really long drive that hogged the entire game. They got to avoid that. They got to, if they're ahead by 21, keep it up. Don't let them get back to, down 7 or something like that with 5 minutes left in the game or something like that. So
we have seen that before, especially when it comes to Texas football. It's like a record at this point. So next question coming up to both of you. Texas football fans expected kind of a national championship caliber season or something around that with Sam Ellinger, supposedly his final season as of last year. We'll get into that in the future. We're now looking at a 2-2 team who's lucky to be 2-2 in some regards, coming back against Texas Tech. What would happen if they lose this week? What do you think the repercussions should or would be? Justin, we'll start with you.
Here's the thing. The repercussions aren't going to be immediate, and that's something that kind of needs to get through the heads of Texas fans is because, look, Tom Herman has a gigantic contract that was signed for whatever reason after one win against Georgia and a pretty decent season whenever they went 10-4 just a couple years ago. Texas can't just let go of Tom Herman, not only just because of money, but we're also in the midst of a pandemic going on, in case you didn't know. And that's not going to be a good sign whatsoever. They're able to pay off his contract in the midst of also cutting jobs of many people in the athletic department. That's just not a good PR move whatsoever. So it's just going to have to end up kind of being biting the bullet and see what happens. You want Sam Ellinger, who's been so cherished and so loved by this fan base for the past 4 years, to have a good senior send-off. But unfortunately, it just doesn't really look like that's going to come into fruition as much as possible. So it's a little sad to see it like that. But personally, if I'm Chris Del Conte, I'm not like, what we need. I'm looking at, okay, what can we do with Tom Herman? But I'm not making that decision the day afterwards because that's going to send off more wrong than right. So,
Clark, what happens if Texas loses this one?
It's really bad because now you're under 500 with 5 games into the season. And this is 2 years coming off a great Sugar Bowl victory where it looked like Texas was going to start building off of that. And you might have to start thinking about rebuilding the program yet again. And it's a really consequential loss because even though it's still relatively early in the season, it's Sam Ellinger's senior season. This was supposed to be the year where Texas started looking somewhat like maybe the Mac Brown, Darrell K. Royal era Texas that we wanted them to be. But that just would show that they're a little bit further from that than we thought. So if they lose, they're going to have to start rethinking the future of the program potentially.
So speaking of the future of the program, Sam Ellinger, senior, but now in a position because of the COVID protocols with the NCAA, has a chance to do kind of a super senior type thing, and he could come back. This year doesn't count on anyone's eligibility, so theoretically, if he wants to, he could return next season. In your opinion, does he return, Clark?
This is a tough one. I'm going to have to go with no, unfortunately. I'm sorry, Texas fans. I love Sam Ellinger. He's a great all-time player, but I don't think it's in Sam's best interest for him to stay an extra year because I always use this example. Braxton Miller at Ohio State, beloved player, suffered a severe shoulder injury in college, and that ultimately changed his path. He didn't make it in the NFL because of that. He had to switch positions and was just never quite the same player. If Sam Ellinger came back for his 5th year and had, unfortunately, it's a part of it, injuries happen in football, and had an injury that could really just drop his NFL draft stock, that would be horrible. And that's not something you want. When the money is on the table with the NFL and the opportunity to go there, and there's a pretty good chance that Sam will get drafted, you have to take that, in my opinion.
Justin, what about you? Do you think Sam comes back for one more year?
I'm looking at it, and I know that this university has a very special place in his heart, and there's part of me that's like, well, maybe he kind of comes back. Really, the only reason why I would think that he would come back is I know this is kind of not really related to football at all, is just because of the potential for maybe furthering his degree along. One of the big standouts about Sam is that he is in the business. He's with you, Robert. He's in the business school at McCombs, and that's a really well-esteemed program to get into. So if he's looking into like getting a master's degree or anything like that, and kind of maybe going a different route outside of football, that may be the one reason why Sam Ellinger comes back. Outside of that, I think that he is proving himself to be a good enough leader on this Texas team. He's kind of carrying the team on his back right now, to be completely honest with it. And if I'm, any NFL team whatsoever, I'm looking at this guy and going, okay, he's a good locker room guy to have, a good maybe backup quarterback, and then maybe eventually being a quarterback on the team. I think that this is kind of his prime year to do so whatsoever, even if, it's not quite to the expectations of everyone, wanted him to. He was in the early rounds of being in the Heisman finalist talk, even potentially winning the Heisman, and that just doesn't seem like it's going to be happening this year. But I still think that he's proven himself enough to where, this is a good launching point for him, even though, they may finish 500 or right above 500. They can still get off that he can still get off that launch pad and, get in the NFL and do some damage there.
Yeah, we'll take this opportunity. McCombs does have a fantastic MBA program as well as an MPA program. So you don't know, maybe a five-year plan works. I don't know his career goals. Anyway, let's get to this weekend. Something that's going to be a point of contention amongst Longhorn fans. Usually very united. Very recently, this has caused a divide. The Eyes of Texas, the school's alma mater. Sam Ellinger taking a little bit of flack, although he did clarify that the team has united around the image that was circulating of him being the only player standing there for the Eyes of Texas. The Longhorn band saying that they are not going to perform on Saturday after they took a poll of people that would actually be attending the game. So they will not be performing at all because they would not be performing the Eyes of Texas. Let's discuss this. What are your takes on this, or not even necessarily takes, but what's your view on the situation? Justin, we'll start with you.
There's kind of a lot to unpack, and as someone who is in power as the sports director for the TSTV Sports Department, I wanted to bring this up, and I'm glad that we're kind of bringing this up right now because it is worthy of debate, and maybe this will go on for a while. But here's a few things that I've noticed that have developed recently and some things that I think overall about the Eyes of Texas. One is that a lot of the stuff that's going on right now, and I mean by right now, like in the past week or so, is very cherry-picked. Sam Ellinger was out on the field for the UTEP game and whatever the last home game was at the TCU game as well. He was out on the field after the game, doing the Eyes of Texas afterwards. But it was because he had just gotten that loss after Oklahoma. It was kind of a little interesting spin that came out of some of the local media whenever they came out of that. Another thing, too, that's kind of being cherry-picked as well is there was never really an announcement that the Texas fan was going to be coming back whatsoever. So, again, it seems like there's being a lot more hoopla made out of this specific week whatsoever. And it just kind of feels like a lot of, people are just trying to make a story out of something that's really not that much of a story because, like I said, Sam's been doing this the past 3 games or so that the Aztecs have been played, and the band wasn't really scheduled to come back whatsoever. So that's my take on that specific part. My personal take on the Eyes of Texas itself, I think that, the school needs to look into, moving away from the song because of a lot of things that have come along with it. It's past, and it's just not what it's come to light recently, and everyone's kind of realizing that this is maybe not the best route for the university itself, considering the university's past and its racial past as well, that it has really been hard on minority communities in the city. I mean, in Austin, and also in the college campus as well. So I think that there have been many opportunities to make do with as best as you can with this, and the university is just kind of falling, and the UT system is just kind of failing at doing everything wrong, it feels like. I've seen what people are talking about, new ways to come up with the school song, and they all seem great and very genuine and just really great ideas, and it seems like nobody's listening to them, which is just really unfortunate. And it's just kind of, at the end of the day, it just kind of shows the power, who has the power at the school. And as students, it's heartbreaking to say that we don't have as much power as we feel like, because there are big donors to the school who want to keep the traditions that are in place. So it is really unfortunate to see. I hope that people continue to fight for this, and we find a resolution of this that, allows us to show that we are able to overcome something like this, but it just looks really bleaker by the day. So it's really unfortunate.
Clark, I'm going to give you, I guess with the spirit of the presidential debate being tonight, I'm going to also give you 2 minutes to respond.
Yeah, I'll mute my mic.
We'll be muted. Clark, what do you think?
Glad to hear that. I'll try to keep it within 2 minutes.
You can go over. You're not limited.
Okay, good. But Justin brought up a lot of great points there. I wanted to bring up something Taquan Graham said in USA Today. He said it's not a point of contention within the team. Thankfully, he respects Sam's decision. They all respect each other's decision. And I want to talk about the Eyes of Texas directly because we know the issues with this song, the implications behind this song, the history behind it with minstrel shows and how it has a ugly racial history. And there are a lot of boosters who have an emotional tie to it because they're alumni. But times change. And right now we're trying to make progress in this country and try to make things better so we all get along and we can all have a better sense of coherence and unity together. And I don't think things should be a part of this. And that's not to disrespect anyone who wants to sing the Eyes of Texas, but I also understand people who don't want to sing it as well because of the negativity that surrounds that song. And I just want there to continue to be progress for everyone so that it can continue to grow and we can have a better society for the future.
And I will say, I think some people feel a little frustrated, especially the donors, saying, why now? I will say it was not an okay song to sing in 2019 or 2018 or 2017 or 2016 and what have you. But this is the year that this has come to light and it should have come to light sooner. And therefore, I think, in my opinion, in the interest of time, I think it's time for the university to look in a new direction. Although I can't understand, and I'm sure we all understand the frustration that alumni can have with a song that has deep emotional ties that they were maybe not aware of. That is going to conclude our discussion. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I want to add something real quick. One more thing, too. I don't think a lot of people are making this out to be that the lack of unity in what the team thinks in the locker room about the song is a sign of lack of unity on the field. I don't think that those things translate at all whatsoever because we talk about the mutual respect that the players have for it. You know, you have a guy like Sam Ellinger who stays on the field and sings the song, while you have a guy like Caden Stearns who has been outspoken and against the song and saying that there needs to be calls for a new school song. They both have mutual respect for one another, and I don't think that is the reason why the football team is not cooperating whatsoever with each other. I think there are other reasons outside of it, and it's not because of their thoughts on a song. That doesn't quite make sense to me. So I just want to make that point. It's a lot of points I've been seeing made by people, and I want that to be on the record. So,
yeah, I will also put that on record. I think these young men are adult enough to be able to separate what's on the field from off the field. I think that's a great point to make. That does conclude our discussion of Texas football for this week. When we come back, we're taking your questions from the crowd. Daniel Shee definitely going to be on, I can already tell. Without even looking at the questions, I did kind of cheat. But when we come back, we'll get more of that. This is the One and O Sports Show. Stick around. This is the 1-0 Sports Show. Welcome back in. Robert Trevino joined by Clark Dalton, Justin Morris. This time it's time to take your questions from the crowd. Let's see what the first question is. I wonder who it's going to be. I think I know. I think it's at Daniel Shee. Daniel, once again, thank you for asking. Couldn't be on today. Who will be the Rays MVP of the World Series? So a little bit of a loaded question right out the gate from Daniel. And why? Another loaded question. Is it going to be Clayton Kershaw? Justin, let's start with you. I see you rubbing your hands already.
Yeah, I'll tell you why. I don't have a pick because there isn't going to be a Rays MVP in the World Series. And the World Series MVP, it's either going to be Mookie Betts, it's going to be Cody Bellinger, or God, I hope it is Clayton Kershaw. That would be awesome. As a huge Clayton Kershaw fan, as I've already talked about earlier in the show, I'm not even going to answer who's going to be the Rays MVP because it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Clark?
Well, I'm going to say someone on the Rays that needs to be their MVP, and that's their pitcher, Charlie Morton. He's starting for Game 3, and he's been huge in the playoffs in the past. He has a 7-2 record in the postseason. He's been 5-0 since joining the Rays, and he had that infamous run with the Astros when he was playing against the Dodgers in 2017. So he really needs to step up because we know it's hard to pitch against Cody Bellinger and Mookie Betts on the same team, and the Rays need to keep up with their pitching if they have any shot of winning this series.
All right, Daniel, I hope that satisfied your question. We had some great answers on that one. Let's get to our next one. This one comes to us courtesy of Derek Duke. He's been on the show both years the show has existed. Thank you. He works for Heartland and Big 12 Country. Going to shout them out. How many wins will Tom Herman need to save his job? And what's the thought of the all-white uniforms that Texas will be wearing this week? Clark, we'll start with you.
I think Tom Herman needs to win every game this season from then on. So that's about 6 games left. 6 games left.
6 games
in order to keep his job. And, maybe, just maybe, the Big 12, I don't know, possibly. And then for the all-white uniforms, I'd actually prefer it if they went for burnt orange, just because that's Texas's home look. That's so iconic. They need that. And also with uniforms, I'd like to see Texas kind of branch out a little bit. Maybe a black uniform every once in a while. Maybe a different helmet as well, like a little stripe down the middle, just to kind of freshen up their uniforms and maybe get more recruits interested and excited to play in the burnt orange.
Justin, what do you think?
How many wins will Tom Herman need to save his job? I think he needs to. Clark said win out. I think that is possible for this Texas team. Even though Oklahoma State's ranked number 6, I'll talk about that later as well. I think that if he wins 5, I think that it's okay. And is able to – I think the big key, though, is getting that bowl win for Texas, because it seems like no matter how rough the season is, Tom Herman's able to pull it off in the bowl game. He's been 3-0 and hasn't lost a bowl game ever, even whenever he was at Houston. So if he wins that bowl game, like, everyone's going to somehow forget about everything. Like, perfect example, I know we beat Utah. I can't tell you what our record was, what Texas' record was last season. I think they were 8-5, but somehow that just kind of fades my memory away. And then real quick on thoughts on the Texas all-white uniforms. I think they're cool. I think the burnt orange on the side of the helmet is pretty sick. But one thing to me that's just kind of interesting is that a lot of people have hyped up about how orange is the home team colors and white's the away colors. I've never noticed that up until really this week. And I've been at the school for the past 4 years covering Texas football. And it is just never dawned upon me to focus on the uniform so much. But I think that they're cool. And I agree with Clark. I think they should start branching out a little bit more and do some more fun stuff. The idea of a black uniform would be so sick. So it'd be cool to see them branch out a little bit more.
I got to say, I am on a more of a uniform purist end, a little bit like Notre Dame. Stick with what is classic, but honestly, as like a 20-year-old, I would like to see a black uniform. All right, this next question comes to us courtesy of our favorite Joey, also the future internet funny man at Starboard Panda. So who is everyone's dark horse Super Bowl matchup, he asks. Justin?
A dark horse Super Bowl matchup? If you want to make a dark horse claim, you got to pull someone out of the NFC East because that's about as dark horse as it comes right now, because one of those teams will be making it to the playoffs. So let's see. I'll go with the Cowboys in the NFC. Somehow, maybe Dak comes back or something like that, and we get somehow a Super Bowl matchup where Dak and the Dallas Cowboys are playing the Super Bowl. Just, that would top off 2020 just in general, just proving the craziness that has happened so far. In the AFC, I'm going to go with the boys back here. Yeah, and I know Clark will agree with me as well. We'll go with the Denver Broncos and the Dallas Cowboys rematching once again in the Super Bowl. We'll go with that one.
Clark, how about you?
As much as I would love to see the Denver Broncos in the Super Bowl, I don't think that's happening with the Kansas City Chiefs facing them twice a year in the AFC West. That's not happening. And sorry, Cowboys fans, it's just a lot of dysfunction there right now. But for my dark horse matchup, it's the Tennessee Titans coming out of the AFC, because this was sort of a team that maybe we thought was a one-hit wonder, but they might be for real. They're 5-0 so far. Derrick Henry looks like the best running back in the NFL, and Ryan Tannehill looks like the guy who's a really good quarterback, not necessarily a franchise guy every year, but is good enough to lead you in the playoffs. And then the NFC, it's a little bit harder because the favorites are more overstated, but the team that should not be 5-1 at all, it doesn't make any sense to me, is the Chicago Bears. We have Nick Foles once again having that weird bit of magic he has with Matt Nagy every year. they joined together. And also the Bears have a pretty good defense. I'm surprised, though, that this team is 5-1. If there was a Super Bowl matchup, it would just be a defensive slugfest.
All right, let's get into our last question from the crowd. This one comes to us courtesy of @CrystalKid. He asks, is the new strategy for Texas to have its comeback in the last 3 minutes in the fourth and go into OT for eternity? Because Texas Tech, OU, we've seen it in the primetime games now. Everyone's seen it. UT apparently loves to just come from behind. Is this our strategy, Clark?
Absolutely. We have them right where we want them. That's fun. Watching blowouts isn't any fun. You don't want to watch a 48-6 game. I want to watch a 49-48 game. You go through so many emotions when you have these overtimes in fourth quarter. So it's just Texas, the Longhorns, bringing entertainment value to their fans.
Justin, the fans wanted football in 2020. They're getting exciting football in 2020. Is this our strategy? Is this the strategy?
They are getting what I brought up 2020 just in the last question. They are getting what 2020 football looks like, and that is me having my heart rate go up in the last 5 minutes because all of a sudden they start coming back and or they start slipping away. So I don't think for eternity, but maybe this might just be the way that football's played. One thing I'll add real quick: I know Sam after the game against the Texas Tech game, kind of giddy and happy after that win, was talking about how the Texas Tech game was 2020 if 2020 was a football game, and then pretty much the same thing happened in the Oklahoma game, where it felt like that was just 2020 in a football game. So maybe that's just the way that things are going to operate this year. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see about that. I don't know if my heart rate can take it anymore. But
I don't know.
Speaking of that, we're gonna have some entertaining stuff coming up because when we come back, we're gonna take a look at what's trending. I think we might see McConaughey. Maybe not.
Ooh.
Not to be confirmed. Have to stick around for it. This is the One and No Sports Show. That was the seventh inning stretch. That was not the seventh inning stretch, but the de facto seventh inning stretch. Welcome back. Robert Trevino, joined again by Clark Dalton and Justin Morris. Welcome to What's Trending. Now we're going to do either thumbs up or thumbs down. You guys give me your takes on this. We're starting off with the professor, the minister of culture himself, Matthew McConaughey, went on PMT, the chest pump with Big Cat and PFT commenter. Let's take a look at that.
Or whatever you're feeling.
All right, Clark, thumbs up or thumbs down? I don't know how you could thumbs down this.
Let's see if I can do this. That's terrible. Nah, I'm not going to try that. Thumbs up, of course. That's what they need to bring to UC's defense. Give them some of that chest bump energy. Anytime you see that reference to Wolf of Wall Street, it just makes you smile.
Yeah, rookie numbers, got to pump those up. Justin, thumbs up or thumbs up?
Look, it says Professor McConaughey, and in this case scenario, he is my professor. I am in the class, so I'm not gonna thumbs down my own teacher. So I just bought his book too recently that's coming out. He's doing all this tour stuff. That's a pretty crazy book. So maybe if he's tuning in, it's a pretty crazy book so far. I'm only 25 pages in. I can't thumbs down my own professor, man. Come on, it's a great class. I love being in that class.
Yeah, be sure to pick up a copy of Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. We'll plug that. All right, let's move on. Mookie Betts, free tacos. Those are the 4 words they were giving to me in the script. Let's take a look at this. Clark, Justin, what are your takes on this? Let's see what this is all about.
I was watching the game, and I saw that stat line come up, and I was like, oh, whoever wrote the Chiron for Fox, who's ever working Chiron for Fox Sports today is just doing God-tier stuff. That is a great graphic. And the fact that was on, network television. It wasn't just on cable television. Sometimes you'll see goofy stuff happen like that on a cable station because they have a little bit more freedom. But the fact that was on national TV was chef's kiss. That was perfect.
Clark, what do you think about that whole debacle?
Double thumbs up for sure,
Ooh.
just because of the category you're putting it in. He's done it twice, free tacos for all twice, and they're putting it in the same category as World Series titles. I think that's just hilarious.
All right, our next What's Trending also involves Daniel Shee making another. I'm not sure if he tweeted this out, but let's take a look at the CPBL fake out right here going up. Okay, so he doesn't have it. Solo home run, except he does have it. Okay, the old switcheroo. So thumbs up or thumbs down on this, Justin?
I'm going to give it 2 thumbs up. I'm not on camera quite yet, but 2 thumbs up for this one. And it's hard not to. There we go. 2 thumbs up for that one. And here's why I got to give it 2 thumbs up. So Daniel was going sicko mode because of it. The tweet went viral. It's been picked up on almost every sports Twitter account, which is so cool. And Daniel, for watching, shout out to you. You're doing great stuff out there in Taiwan. The reasons why, that calls for 1 thumbs up. The reason why it gets 2 thumbs up is because without telling my dad that this happened, my dad showed this to me. And the fact that it somehow just circumvented through all of these circles that I have back to me through my own father. If he's watching right now, he showed me and my grandpa the video, and I was like, do you know who tweeted that? My co-sports director. That's who tweeted that. So that calls for 2 thumbs up right there as well.
Yeah, Daniel also making an appearance on the Rich Eisen show.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
big things coming out of Taiwan, and specifically Daniel Shee. Clark, what are you thinking?
I'm enjoying all these positive vibes, but the home run got robbed. So that's that guy. He was so close to having a home run. He's just jotting around the bases. Woo! I got a home run. But then it's like that line in Major League where one of the fans, I think they're playing the Yankees or something, and then a guy hits a home run and one of the fans says too high. That's the only time that phrase makes sense, because the outfielder jumped too high and he didn't get his home run.
Yeah, no, I got a little nervous when you said, let me quote Major League. I was a little worried about a maybe PG rating for a little bit there, but thank you for keeping it clean. Now let's go on to Trevor Lawrence. He hasn't been able to dodge this since I think the day he became famous, somebody looking like him, the lookalikes. So what are you giving this one? Because we've seen a ton of these. Thumbs up or thumbs down? Clark?
It's kind of a tough one because we've seen it so many times, but seeing them meet each other, that's a thumbs up, just because that's pretty cool of Trevor to do that, just kind of having a sense of humor about it. And they really do look alike. It's kind of stunning. They almost look like they could be siblings. That's how much they look alike. So I think it's just kind of funny, and it's cool to see Trevor play along with that.
Yeah, especially with something like that. Always got to lean into it, and Trevor's been a great sport about it. Justin?
Yeah, you brought up the fact that there's just been multiple lookalikes. So Trevor Lawrence is so weird. I'll give this 1 thumbs up because there is another lookalike that I saw. I was trying to find the video today, but I couldn't quite find enough in time for the show. But there was one person that posted it online. Trevor Lawrence himself said, I thought this was me. And I thought it was Trevor Lawrence whenever I originally watched the video. But I gotta give it to her at the end. She was able to end up meeting him, which is pretty sick. And that's just all positive vibes in this block right here. All positive vibes right here. All thumbs up.
All right, all thumbs up. Maybe we'll have some disagreements in this next part because we're picking our college football playoff picks. And let's get right to it. Clark, who do you got in your top 4 as of right now?
Okay, so at number 1, we have Clemson. Easy pick. Just beat a team 73-7. Not a lot of teams do that. Number 2, even though they haven't played yet, Ohio State. They have a lot of talent returning. Good head coaching staff with Ryan Day. Then Alabama, Mac Jones looks great. Nick Saban, he's always doing his thing. They have a lot of talent. But then at number 4, I am representing the underdog, the Cinderella story, the Cincinnati Bearcats. Now, this is probably me just being a victim of the moment, but let's be honest here. This is a weird year for college football. And if a group of 5 teams would ever make the college football playoff, this is the year to do it. And Cincinnati's a pretty good candidate. They only allow 12 points per game. And what I like about them is they're kind of the antithesis to modern college football because it's all about high scoring, throwing the ball deep downfield. Cincinnati doesn't do that. They like to slug it out. They have a tough defense. Luke Fickell is one of the best head coaches in college football, and he's the Bearcats heading in the right direction. And I'm just not sold on the Big 12 or Pac-12 just yet. I need to see them play just a little bit more first.
Yeah, we'll see a lot of disagreement between us on that 4 spot. Justin, who do you have?
He said Pac-12, and it made me just realize earlier in the show I said Pac-10 for whatever reason. So I guess I'm stuck in the 2000s. But let's get to it. Clemson, number 1. Nobody's touching them. Alabama at number 2. I think that they're still going to be able to compete. They kind of got off to a slow start against who I have as my number 4, Georgia, this past week, but they're still able to get it done. Ohio State, I have them ranked below Alabama, and it's because I think that the people that are at the CFP are going to evaluate the fact that Ohio State didn't have enough games to play. So, they're still in the playoff itself, and they'll still have the opportunity to contend against one of these top teams. My number 4, it could have been a lot of other teams, but I'm going to end up going with Georgia overall. I think that, as proven with the AP poll, they lost to Alabama, but only went down one spot. I don't want to think that some team like Texas A&M or some other team is going to be able to sneak in. Clark, I really hate to burst your bubble, but I don't think that this is the year that a group of 5 team is going to get in. And I really hope that Notre Dame doesn't get in either, because they're really not as good. They're very overhyped. And luckily they play in the ACC this year, so there's a little bit more ranking to put them up against, a little more face-to-face stuff. So I'm going to pick Georgia as my number 4.
That's a great pick, in my opinion, but I'm going to have to differ a little bit at the number 4 spot. For me, I have Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and I agree with you, Justin, that Ohio State isn't going to have the amount of games to really show the committee all they've got. But number 4, I'm going to choose Oregon, just because I believe that because of a shortened season in the Pac-12, I think that we've seen a lot of parity in other conferences. More so than other years. I think the Pac-12, this is their chance to they're kind of like a group of 5 conference anyway. So if any team's going to sneak in, I think Oregon probably has the best chance. And I think it's interesting when it comes to Clark's argument with the group of 5, I totally agree. This would be the year. I think if it's not Oregon, it could be Cincinnati. So I will say Cincinnati is on the maybe list for me. And I'll give you that, Clark. I'm not going to give you Clark. I'm not going to give you Cincinnati in my top 4, but I'll give you that. So a lot of disagreement on the 4 spot, but Alabama, Ohio State, and Clemson, kind of the top dogs right now, even though one of those teams hasn't played a single second of football this year. When we come back, though, we'll talk about this week in football and also baseball and also NFL, college football, everything you could imagine coming up on the 1-0 Sports Show. Lights going on here for the final time in the 4th quarter of this show, you could say. On the 1-0 Sports Show, Robert Trevino, joined by Clark Dalton, Justin Morris, and I want to send a shout-out to our fabulous producer behind the camera today, John Kelly. So thank you very much. And so let's get right into these picks. The Dodgers and the Rays, we've been waiting for this one the entire hour. I know you have too. So we'll start with you, Clark. Who do you got in the whole series? Who's going to walk out as World Series champions?
I think it's going to be a close one, but this is the Dodgers' year. They're a team of destiny this year. Mookie Betts, Cody Bellinger, they're both in their prime. They want that World Series title. I think it's just too much for the Rays at the end of the day.
I would really love to pick against you, but I can't. I think this is the Dodgers' year. I agree with you. I think this will be a great series. I think 2020 has brought a lot of hardships. I think it'll bring a great World Series. Dodgers in 7. Justin?
Do we even need to ask? I'm going to take off my hat for this one. And put on this one.
Hey.
The Los Angeles Dodgers are taking it all. This is their year. Dodgers in 5. We'll do that.
Ooh, little gentleman's sweep. They're going to sweep it out.
Yep.
Okay. Let's get into the NFL. The Giants at the Eagles. Giants 4.5-point dogs. Justin, who do you got?
God, this is going to be a sad game to watch, but I'm going to give it to the Eagles on this one. They're playing at home. Like I said, I think that there's just some things that the Eagles just haven't been able to tweak on quite necessarily. Their problems are a little different than the rest of the NFC East. So if my friend Eric is watching, he's a big Eagles fan, so shout out to him. I'm going to take Philadelphia in this one.
I agree. I think the Eagles, they were kind of like the Cowboys in that their problems seemed a little more approachable up until the Cowboys, of course, lost Prescott. So I'm going to take the Eagles over probably the only other one of 3 other teams I'd take them over, which is the other teams in the NFC East. Clark?
It's a unanimous Eagles panel. I'm taking the Eagles as well. They only lost to 2 against Baltimore last week, and this Giants team is just a mess right now. They just can't seem to figure it out after the loss of Saquon Barkley.
All right, we're unanimous so far through 2 picks. Let's stay in the NFC East, see if we remain unanimous. The Cowboys, 1-point favorites at the Washington football team. Clark, who do you have?
I'm going to take the Cowboys in this one, even though there is a lot of dysfunction with this organization right now. I think Washington has a lot of problems at quarterback, and that's going to hurt them against Dallas this weekend.
I never like picking for the Cowboys, but I am going to pick with them. I'm going to agree with you on this one, Clark. I do think you're going to see, after last week's hardships against the Cardinals, kind of a more rally around the QB effect. I think they finally pulled together at least somewhat of a win, maybe by 3, maybe by 6. We don't even know. Justin, who do you have?
All right, we're gonna end the unanimity of this block so far. Give me the Washington football team. I think that the Cowboys are gonna just kind of start into this descent, and it may pay off for them. They can just lay low and get a high draft pick, and it would just be very on brand for Washington, who's been slipping things up and who's kind of seems like they're already going for that number 1 pick already. To end up beating the Cowboys, so it would just be very on brand for the football team.
All right, let's go from the NFC least to maybe the NFC best. The Seahawks at the Cardinals. That was corny. The Seahawks at the Cardinals. 3.5-point favorites are the Seahawks. Justin, who do you have?
I can see Clark's pick right now, so I'll keep up with the ununanimous nature of what we've been doing so far. Give me the Cardinals on this one. Maybe Steve Helwick's watching us right now. Kyler Murray's doing some pretty decent stuff for the Cardinals right now. Maybe able to kind of finally trip up Russell Wilson, that Cardinals defense. So give me Arizona.
Yeah, I picked the Cardinals last week over the Cowboys. I thought that was a really obvious pick coming. I'm going to say this one's very, very close. I think the Seahawks win by a field goal, but looking at the point spread, I'm taking the Cardinals. Shout out to Steve Helwick. Clark, how about you?
I don't know. The Cardinals, they're still a pretty young team. I think the Seahawks just have a little bit more gel together, and that's going to give them a slight edge in this game.
All right, let's stay with the NFC West, but an inter-conference game here. The 49ers, 1.5-point underdogs at the New England Patriots. Clark, who do you have?
This one's easy for me. The Patriots haven't been playing well. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to want to prove himself against the Patriots. I think the Niners are going to play very well in this game and win by probably about a touchdown.
I agree with you there. I think even the fact they're on the road, I think you're going to see a more inspired performance out of them this week. Justin?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Niners on this one. I think the Patriots are just kind of falling apart right now, and there's a little separation with everything going on. They're kind of just not as cohesive as they normally are. So I'm going to take San Francisco on this one.
All right, let's go from the NFL to the college football world. Number 9, Cincinnati, 2-point favorites taking on SMU in Dallas. Justin, who do you have?
Let's keep it simple. The heck. Give me the Bearcats. I think they're going to come into Dallas. They're hype off of that top 10 ranking. They're going to keep it up. I would love to see Clark's pick come to life, where Cincinnati is in the top 4 teams in the college football playoff. But they got to get through Dallas first, and they got to beat SMU and the Mustangs. So I'll take the Bearcats.
Yeah, I think the Bearcats definitely have something special kind of going for them. I said they're number 5. I'm going to live up with that pick, Cincinnati, in this one. Clark?
I got to be a man of my word, Cincinnati.
All right, let's continue in college football. Little rivalry here. Number 23, North Carolina State. The Wolfpack at number 14, North Carolina. Clark, we'll start with you. Who do you have?
This line is way, way too big. It's a rivalry game, so anything can happen. North Carolina State's starting to play much better. Zonovan Knight, their sophomore running back, is averaging 6.1 yards per game. And North Carolina, very good team, but they're still having some problems defensively. We saw that against Florida State, so I think it's going to be much closer. I'm going to take North Carolina State this one.
I'm going to disagree. I think North Carolina, we've seen some setbacks now, but I still think this line was set for a little bit of a reason. I'm going to trust Vegas a little bit on this one, also because I don't feel like I've been picking the underdog enough. I've been picking the underdog too much. Excuse me. I'm going to pick North Carolina here. Justin?
Well, I'm going with the underdog on this one. I agree with Clark. I didn't realize it until now. That's very high point differential that Vegas is picking right now. Go Wolfpack. I think that they're going to be able to get it done against the Tar Heels.
All right, let's go into our conference, the Big 12 Conference. Kansas, 20-point underdogs at number 20, Kansas State. Justin, we'll start with you. Who do you have?
Yeah, so this is the exact opposite of what we just talked about. This is a spread that is not high enough. I'm taking the over on this one without a doubt. Kansas is, I just kind of talked about the lack of cohesiveness within the Patriots organization. That's kind of like what's happening in Kansas, but on like just such a maximum level that is way beyond what is happening up in Boston. So give me that was kind of a wild tangent, but give me the Kansas State Wildcats on this one. Easy money, gets it done in Manhattan.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of parity from the Big 12 this year. I don't think we're going to see that much parity. I got Kansas State here. Clark, are we going 3 for 3?
As much as I would love to be the contrarian and take Kansas, you have to go with the Wildcats here, especially when they're in Manhattan.
All right, a little bit of a higher ranked matchup than Big 12 fans are used to these days. Number 17, Iowa State, 3.5-point underdogs at Stillwater. Number 6, Oklahoma State. Clark, who do you have?
I'm going to take Oklahoma State in this one just because they're at home. It's a tough place to play. You have Chuba Hubbard. I think he'll take advantage of that Iowa State defense. And Brock Purdy still, aside from that win against Texas last year, hasn't had that signature win under his belt. So that's why I like the Pokes in this one.
I'm going to be the contrarian here. I'm going to pick Iowa State. I think that, just this is a little bit of a curse for Oklahoma State, October, and Iowa State. And maybe they're ranked number 6 now, maybe some national championship aspirations here and there. So I'm just going to go off of a hunch. I'm going to take Brock Purdy and his experience, and I'm going to take the Cyclones. Justin?
No, I like your take, but I'm going to save that for next week. I'm going to go on the record right now. Oklahoma State's going to beat the Hawkeye. No, they're not the Hawkeye. The Cyclones. There we go. Wrong Iowa team. Oklahoma State's going to take care of business in Stillwater against the Cyclones. But going on the record right now, Texas, no matter what the outcome of the Baylor game, they are going to somehow beat the Oklahoma State's Cowboys and just mess up, just implode the big finale of the implosion of the Big 12. They're kind of hanging by a thread right now in Stillwater, but that's going to be the blow that just there's not going to be a Big 12 team in the top 10. So
UT going scorched earth here. Let's see about the Big 10. Number 18 Michigan, 3-point favorites at number 21 Minnesota. Justin, who do you have?
If you know me, I'm never picking Michigan whatsoever in any game. Give me Minnesota. Give me the Golden Gophers. They're going to get it done. Shock some things. And they got College Game Day there once again, which is pretty sick. They didn't have it for so long, and they're going back-to-back. So good for them.
All right, I'm actually going to take Michigan. I know a lot of people don't trust Michigan. I don't. I think they'll probably stay undefeated until they get their heart broken by Ohio State once again. I don't think they can ever beat the Buckeyes, probably ever again. That'll probably end up being wrong. But give me Michigan here. And Clark, who do you got?
I'm going to take Minnesota. I like what PJ Fleck is building there. I'm not really on board with the direction Michigan has gone over the past few seasons. Also, Tanner Morgan, their quarterback, is returning. That'll be a huge factor in this game.
All right, let's go to our game. Baylor, 8.5-point underdogs to the Texas Longhorns. Clark, who do you have?
I'm going to take Texas on this one, even though the Longhorns have had some problems in the last few games. I just think with Baylor's long break they've had, basically losing all of October, that's going to be a huge disadvantage, and there's going to be some rust for the Bears, and I like the Longhorns in this one.
Yeah, I think this is one of those infamous bounce-back games for Texas where they just kind of take it out on a lower opponent after a disappointing performance at OU. I think the team has really rallied after a little bit of the, Justin mentioned earlier, a little bit of the faux controversy that's been kind of created by local media. I think they come out, show the team's really unified, and really put the clamps on Baylor. Justin?
You know what? I have Texas written down, but I'm going to pick Baylor. And the reason why is because I'm a very superstitious person and I want to be proven wrong. So a little reverse psychology here. Give me the Bears. Dave Aranda is going to get it done in Austin and all of a sudden hype up his team much more than they need to be. And then, like I said, next week they'll get it done in Stillwater.
So that's the selfless mentality, taking the loss.
No, I am sacrificing my own I'm sacrificing my own line on the record on the show just for Texas to eventually win.
All right, I think Tom Herman should take a look at you, personal picker, in the future if this does come true. All right, let's finish it off with some NFL. Tampa Bay, 3.5-point favorites. They go to Sin City, Las Vegas, and take on the Raiders. Justin, who do you got?
I'm going to go with the Bucs on this one. I think the Buccaneers are going to be able to get it done. They got something really special. I personally did not think that Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would be this good so far in the season. I thought this was going to be kind of like what we see sometimes whenever like a Michael Jordan going to the Wizards or another star player just kind of going to another team and then just kind of whimpering out for the rest of their career. He's doing something magical down in Tampa Bay, and I think they're going to be able to get it done and just kind of keep on going on and make a pretty good playoff run too. So,
yeah, I agree with you. I kind of saw like Jordan and the Wizards, maybe the Orlando Magic and Patrick Ewing in the cards, but so far they've looked impressive. I think they get this done on the road. Clark, you got the last pick today.
It's Tom Brady we're picking today with the Buccaneers. The Raiders are having some problems with their offensive line right now. I think that's going to be a huge disadvantage against this Tampa defense where they're really starting to come into their own, and Tom Brady's really starting to click in this offense. Buccaneers win this one.
All right, well, let's see how those picks pan out this weekend. That's all we have for you this week. Be sure you tune in next week, and also make sure you check out some of our sister shows. College Press Box, it's Tuesday nights at 6:30. College Crossfire, that's Wednesday nights at 9 for Clark Dalton, Justin Morris, and, of course, John Kelly in the studio. I'm Robert Trevino. Have a good morning.